Hello, vinyl community. My name's Alan. What do you think is the worst album of all time? Well, apparently in 1998, the BBC asked that question. They did a poll. And according to the results of that poll, this is the worst album of all time. It's called Lord Sutch and Heavy Friends. It came out in the spring of 1970. I was in high school at the time. I got it sometime thereafter. I think I might have gotten it in 1970 or 71, but around that period. And it's notable because, as you can see, on several of the tracks, in fact, I think about 6 of them, you have Jimmy Page playing guitar and John Bonham on drums, so half of Led Zeppelin. They recorded, from what I gathered, Jimmy Page and John Bonham and a bass player, and I guess that was it. And at one point, they went into the studio when they were, I think, in Los Angeles, and recorded backing tracks for this fella. He's not really a lord, he's not royalty, but it's an interesting cover with the Union Jack painted on this Rolls Royce. I think his real name at birth was David Sutch. He'd been around England for quite a while, ran for Parliament several times. Anyway, when he was in California at the same time as Led Zeppelin was touring, after their first album, but before their second album, he asked Jimmy Page to do a favor, and Jimmy Page obliged, went into the studio. Later, unfortunately, I think Jimmy Page basically disavowed this album. He thought it was just going to help someone. And according to the album, it says that it was produced by Jimmy Page. I actually think it's a good album. I like the album. And you also may read, well, it's interesting how you can twist words. Where I read, I think it was in Wikipedia, that this was the worst album of all time. It said similar sentiments were echoed by this fellow named, I think, Colin Larkin, who put it number 1,000 of his top 1,000 albums. Well, actually, I think that's a different way of looking at it. 1,000 albums, there are really, he said, the top 1,000 albums. So if you made the list, even if you're number 1,000, that's a good thing. There are thousands of good albums out there, thousands. So I don't think that's actually a bad thing. I don't know if Colin Larkin made this on subsequent lists, because I know he's revised some lists. But okay, all that said, let's see. So this is, I have it on the Cotillion label, and it's interesting. It's kind of a rock and roll album. I like it because, you know, Jimmy Page, if you think about him after Led Zeppelin 1 and before Led Zeppelin 2 came out, on the songs he does play, you can hear that Jimmy Page sound. And he's just brilliant. Maybe he disparaged himself on what was recorded. And again, it's not the best recording. I think Lord Sutch's vocals were added after the fact, and his vocals aren't the strongest. But throughout this album, it sounds to me a little bit like Led Zeppelin, but more like a late Yardbirds album, because you also have Jeff Beck on at least one number, and the songs, you know, most of the songs are written by Lord Sutch and someone else. 6 of the songs are credited to Lord Sutch and Jimmy Page, and they, you know, the one song that Jeff Beck is on, it's called Gutty Guitar. You know, it sounds like that rockabilly Jeff Beck sound that we hear on some later albums. And we also have a guy named Kent Henry, who played on at least part of the album Open by Blues Image, and then later on a later For Ladies Only album with Steppenwolf. And if you like guitar, I think it's a great album. It's just kind of fun. You know, I don't take it that seriously. Again, Lord Sutch doesn't have the greatest vocals, and I think his vocals could have sounded better, maybe with a little bit of reverb or something. But I just like Jimmy Page's guitar playing. One of the songs, he said there's a solo in there that's not him. I thought it might be the second song, 'Cause I Love You. 'Cause I Love You sounds like, again, it's kind of a send-up of different types of rock songs. That song struck me as like a Kinks number. Another song is kind of a remake of Treat Her Right. And then, other songs sound just like a takeoff of some rock and roll numbers, but with, this group of heavy friends. So what happens when, you disavow an album, and this is so notorious? Well, you can issue it later. And in 1985, this album is the exact same album in terms of the same music. It's called Smoke and Fire. And again, it has Jimmy Page, Jeff Beck, John Bonham, Noel Redding, and Nicky Hopkins. Noel Redding, of course, the bassist for the Jimi Hendrix Experience. At the time this was recorded, he was still in the Experience, I think, as far as I know, or he might have been leaving by that time. It's not clear exactly when Noel was in the studio. But this album doesn't say Lord Such anywhere. It has vocals, all tracks, David Such. So that's interesting. Which one's the better pressing? Well, this one isn't bad. It's pretty clear. I think it's on Thunderbolt Records. I think it sounds pretty good. I guess I prefer the original more than that one. But what's also interesting, if you want to read, I think it's probably the definitive book on Led Zeppelin. This is the one. It's called Led Zeppelin, the Biography by Bob Spitz. He also wrote a book on the Beatles called The Beatles. But it's interesting, he doesn't mention anything about this recording. I looked at the time period. It's fairly chronological. And you look at the period of April to May 1969, when Led Zeppelin was in California. And if you look, it has an extensive, notes at the back and references, and there's nothing, you can't find Lord Such or David Such in here. So anyway, everyone has different tastes. A lot of people do not like this album. I'm glad I liked it when I got it. Again, doesn't rise to the level of Led Zeppelin's albums or Jeff Beck's. But, to hear two of the greatest guitar players I've ever heard, which is Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page, it's nice to hear them in a different setting, having fun. So I'd be curious, what you think. If you don't like the album, then you share the opinion of a lot of people in England, which is fine. But if your mind is open and you see this record, I'd recommend getting it and playing it, see what you think. So thanks so much for watching. If you can give a thumbs up, I'd appreciate that very much. And take care, vinyl community.